$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soulblazer.
Hello, this is the Super NES podcast, episode 149. Coming at you as always, I am Greg, he is Joe.
Hi.
Thank you very much for joining us as always. We have a rare game to talk about for you in this episode, which actually, curiously enough, both of us had on our lists, but so we would have gotten to this sooner or later, I'm sure, but we both found it different ways. So in this episode, we're looking at a very rare Super NES title, which is called like Higane, the Final Conflict, which is developed by a company called Cat Production, and released by Hudson Soft in 1994 for Japan, 1995 for the rest of the world. So I found this game because a Super NES collector who I follow on Facebook mentioned it recently and made a small blog post about it. I'm like, a rare game I never heard about. What's this? So they got my curiosity up. Joe, how did this game cross your radar?
So I had found a YouTube video that basically covered like hidden gems on the Super NES, and this on two separate videos was mentioned. So I put it immediately on my list.
Right. So, rare, yes. Hidden gem, that's debatable. We're gonna get into it here, I think, because I had some issues with this game. I had some big issues with this game, but having said that, it is interesting to talk about. So we'll get into it here. So anyway, let's get so this is an action platformer game, typical of many other games of this time period, because platformers were all the rage in the 80s and 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very unique, weird game. I really don't know how to describe it. It's a weird combination of like Japanese anime meets cyberpunk, with a bit of like other stuff thrown in for good measure. So
this falls in line very much with like what 90s anime was.
Yes.
At the time, for sure. Like, Ninja Scroll, Akira, Ghost in the Shell, all those. I think of every single one of those when I, think of this game.
Yep, that's pretty good. So, one of the reasons this game is so rare is because that in North America at least, it did not get a big production run. Now, exactly the reason why this is a little bit debated. Most sources online will indicate that this game was one of the Blockbuster exclusive releases. Blockbuster did pay money to get contracts to have certain games that was supposed to have limited appeal, as being exclusive like their store. Probably the most famous example of them doing this was the Clay Fighters 63.5 competition title. So most sources will say that. I could not find anything that officially confirmed this, but given but it seems to make sense because we know the game's available. The game was only released in small amounts based on the prices we're seeing here online. We know that being a Blockbuster exclusive did not stop the game from being covered by magazines, because the other games got covered by magazines as well also. And so if it's a rumor, it's a very widespread rumor. So I'm saying, evidence seems to suggest that this is the game was Blockbuster exclusive. We couldn't find anything to prove that, but I certainly believe it. So unfortunately, with the older games like this, stuff from the 80s and 90s, it's very hard to pin down details sometimes. The most famous example being, like, we still don't know to this day if the original console release of the NES, console release like the NES and the test market in 1985 includes Mario Brothers.
Right.
We sort of said like don't know that. So certain information for older games is a lot harder to find. Nowadays, everything's so documented. Document this will never happen again. But,
Right.
But in those days, it's like, well, we think so, but we don't know. So anyway, just putting that here, like the start. So if you've not heard this game, that's why. Because regardless of Blockbuster or not, the game did get a very, very small release. So, it's a bit more common in Japan and Europe. Still not really super common, but at least the game is a little bit more readily available in those areas compared to like over here in the States. So the game was developed by a small company called CA Production, which did not do very much. They were around 94 to 2009 from what I could find, and their output of games is pretty small. This was their first console game from what I could find. I'm doing research on it. Half of their games were Japan only. The games that came out here in North America, besides this one, were Blue Legend of Water for the PlayStation. The games that came over here in North America that this company put out was Sky Odyssey for the PS2, and 3 games for the Wii, Wing Island and Deca Sports 1 and 2. So
hey, I've played Deca Sports.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty obscure company. They really didn't put out like very much stuff. So, this game was had co-publishers. Apparently the Japanese rights were handled by a company called Red Entertainment, which is which is actually still around. They were founded in 1976. They published like various games for systems like over the years, from NEC, Super NES, Wii, the PS systems, Xbox 360, so on and so on. So the international release of the game was handled by Hudson Soft, which was for a time one of the biggest and most regarded video game companies in the world. They were around from 1973 to 2012. They're probably best known for the Bomberman series, which is a blast to play. Bomberman's always been like one of my favorite, like a multiplayer go-to games.
I'd argue Adventure Island.
I was gonna say Adventure Island's another series. The series they're well known for also, but I think nowadays, because the Bomberman series is still going on.
I can agree.
Because in college and grad school, when we had friends over, if we weren't playing a sports game, we were probably playing Bomberman. Right. So, I mean, Bomberman's just a great multiplayer game, but especially if you get like 8 people going, oh boy. But then it becomes then it becomes frantic. But they're also pretty known like for the Bonk series, which was really the only reason to have TurboGrafx 16. But I shouldn't say that. At least the North American TurboGrafx 16, yes. If you got to the So if you get to the Japanese side with the PC Engine, then the catalog opens up a bit more. But so actually, speaking of the TurboGrafx, Hudson Soft fell upon hard times. It actually was bought by Konami back in 2012. So Konami's still publishing many of their games these days, including like Bomberman. And that's why so that's why when the TurboGrafx 16 Mini came out earlier this year, it was Konami who published it, because Konami has the rights to the catalog. So, they also worked on the Mario Party series for a while, which I also forgot about. So, Hudson did have their fingers in a lot of pies back in the day. So this game is, like I said before, it's awfully hard to peg. Like I said, it's very Japanese and like how it looks and feels. It's a combination of like ninja and samurai stuff with a whole bunch of cyberpunk thrown in. You control Higane, who's a ninja cyborg. And has the ability to switch between different weapons, different abilities, and whatnot. So, it's kind of a hard game to describe. The plot's bonkers. As you would expect for like a Japanese game, of course. It's mostly platforming. There is one hovercraft stage, which is a hovercraft stage that's in like a mode 7 sequence, which kind of feels out of place, like in a game like this. But, so anyway, yeah, I'm struggling a bit to describe how this game actually plays. So Joe, like, you want to have a stab at it?
The best comparison I can bring up, one is the obvious, which I think this game was modeled after, which is Shinobi 3 on the Genesis. Other than that, it's a side scroller that uses every button. Every single button in this game does something, and a lot of the times you are forced to use every single button. I actually enjoyed the idea of the game, not so much the game itself, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
That's actually,
it's
that's like a pretty good way to describe it. So
yeah, I mean, you're a ninja and things are flying out at you. Don't worry about story. If you're gonna play it, play it. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which is actually kind of strange because you mentioned the story. And like I said before, the story is told in a cutscene at the beginning of the game, and it's bonkers. They actually stuck to that story pretty well during the game, because it's like, I noticed this. There's no cutscenes in the game or anything.
Right.
However, all the bosses have names and hints of personalities.
Yep.
The stages all flow together in like look and feel as you progress through the game. It's not like some games they just throw stages in for like whatever reason they want to.
Right.
In this game, it feels purposed. So it's almost like they had like an anime screenplay for this game that they used to make the game, and then even though the plot didn't carry over, it still feels like it's part of the game in some way because of that. So that was very interesting. So you mentioned the controls. The controls do take a while to get used to because, like you mentioned, the controller is heavily used. You have your attack button, a jump button, a special button, a change weapon button, and also forward flip button. So the attack button will attack the weapon you have at hand. The special is you have special weapons you can use throughout the game, which are it's actually all one attack, but you can get but you can use it to define power-ups. You can use it like 9 times.
Right.
So very useful against like bosses and other tough spots. So one interesting part of this game, well, there's actually several interesting parts about this game, but one of the most interesting parts about the game is you can change your weapons. So it's nuanced in the sense that certain weapons are better for certain stages, so you got to experiment to find out like which one's best for what cases. So you basically have 4 weapons essentially. Your sword, which is your starting one, powerful, fast, short range, etc. The kunai, which is a throwing dagger, not very powerful but very accurate, and also you can throw them fast. Grenades, which is kind of like a weird weapon to use here in this game, but whatever. So, very useful against certain areas. You also have a grappling hook, which can double as both the weapon and also as a tool for getting onto the ceiling. So, and then the forward flip and backwards flip is also interesting because it's like you can use that to avoid tight areas. You can also use that to like hop over enemies and like whatnot.
Yeah.
There are definitely times in the game where you want to like flip as opposed to jump. So, learning. So a lot of this game, this is true for most platformers, but especially for this game. A lot of this game is playing it again and again and again to figure out what you want to do in this, what you want to do in an area, what weapon you want to use in an area, etc., etc. So, to the game's advantage of that system, the stages are pretty short. So, there's 5 stages. There's 5 stages altogether, plus the final boss. So various scenes like in the game. But the stages, they're not really all that long, which is to the game's benefit. But the actual gameplay itself, it's like, okay, so the somersault, I should also probably talk about like a bit more. You actually can do, depending upon the button you push, you can either do a dragon punch or a flying kick. So, and there's like 3 different, and depending upon the number of flips you do, it's either going to be standard attack, semi-charge attack, or fully charged attack. And you can tell that because he'll blink different colors. So, like I said, there's a lot taken here as far as the controls, as far as the controls and your abilities. You also can do a drop kick, a mid-air somersault, a slide. It's almost too much to deal with at once.
Yes.
You just have to, you just have to you just have to just experiment to take your time. You are gonna fail a lot at the start of the game. Trying to figure out what you want to do and whatnot. So anyway, the gameplay. We touched upon this a little bit. This is one of those games. I think Joe will agree with me based on what he said. Not to put words in your mouth or anything, but
Yep.
the gameplay is a lot of cool ideas that just do not come together perfectly in execution for one reason or another. This game is very frustrating to play, I think, because at least at first, after you get after you get good at the game, it becomes better and easier. But
Right.
the first few hours of the game, you're gonna be like, "What am I doing? What should I do here? Why is this so tough? Why do I keep dying?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah." And it's like the game is very user unfriendly.
Yeah.
There's very few checkpoints, which kind of which I mean the game stages are short, but the checkpoints. But if you die, you be prepared to be kicked back a long ways.
Yep.
Longer than you should be in a game like this.
Yeah.
There's no save feature. There's no passwords to help you out. So again, it's it's one of those games you gotta play like one setting, which sucks. So if you run out of lives, you have to go all the way back to the start of the chapter. You don't have a lot of hit points, and it's very easy to get like trapped and cornered and get killed. So, especially if you don't know what weapon, especially if you have the wrong weapon for an area.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Or you don't know what skill to use to beat a boss or whatnot. So, I mean, once you get this is one of those games typical of the time period, yes, but this is one of those games that if you're willing to put the time and the patience to figure out like what to do in each area, how to proceed, to get good at the game, it's fine. It gets fun even, but you have to be prepared to put that time in the game to start with because it's very, very frustrating, very, very difficult to start with. It took me a long time to get to even finish the first stage. So, So anyway, Joe. Joe, like I said, I didn't want to speak entirely for you, but so. Do you want to expand or contradict me like in any way based upon like what I just said?
I will say you pretty much covered it pretty well. This is one of the things that I found very frustrating with this game. So you have your 4 directions that you can attack. Now, this is after Castlevania, Super Castlevania 4. So 8 directional attacking is possible. Why they didn't think of that, I don't know. I feel like this game, like the grenades only attack at an arch.
True. Yep.
I think the grenades were put in there because it was an easier fix than programming a diagonal attack. So they just put the grenades in there, was able to program that, and that was quicker than being able to, be able to swing your sword diagonally. That's the only thing I can think of because the grenades very much feel tacked on, and I feel like they were literally there because they were like, some of these enemies you need to be able to attack diagonally and you can't, so let's throw the grenades in there to kind of take care of that. Other than that, this game is play, die, play, get past the part you just got past, something new comes, you die. Repeat the process until you can get to the end. I have no shame in saying that I spent 45 minutes on the first level alone,
Sounds all right. Yep.
I kept getting to the second ship battle because there's 2 points in which you fight the ship. And the second ship battle kept killing me and killing me and killing me, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong because I took down the first one, no problem, no issues.
Yeah, you only have 3 hits before you die in this game, which is very frustrating because it's like, could you give us like Ninja Gaiden level quality hit gauge here,
right,
stuff like that? But yeah,
in all of my deaths, I think there was only one instance where I did the big screen clearing super move, and ended up getting an extra life out of doing that.
Okay, yeah.
So you 1 out of every 10 times that you blew up the first part of the ship with a screen clearing bomb, you would get a 1-up. So that gives you an idea of how scarce life is in this game. Much like other games, I did not get very far on my own on this. Surprise, surprise. And this actually wasn't because I didn't have the time to put into it. This is just a combination of me being older now and not being able to retain simple things like what just happened in the game. Because, needless to say, I was frustrated.
Yeah, you need good reflexes like this game for sure. So, I mean, it's like...
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a hard game. I don't think... Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think my younger self would have been okay with this game.
Oh, yeah,
but
sure. Yeah.
Me, as an almost 40-year-old man, my reflexes are not what they used to be.
Yep.
And
I hear you.
So the
the
game is fair. It's difficult, but fair. I felt like every time I died, it was my fault. It wasn't game design or anything like that. It was my fault. So it's not the game
I would
itself.
agree with that mostly, except for the point there were a couple areas that you mentioned before that the enemies could attack you, but you couldn't attack them because of your weapons.
Right.
I really hate that. It's like, if you can hit me, I should be able to hit you. But
see, like I said, they have the grenades, and that's where I feel like the grenades did come in. But you're right. Half the time, I was using not
the sword.
I wasn't even using the sword half the time. I was
daggers?
using the daggers, because literally, I could throw the daggers wherever I needed to, and it was taking care of everything in front of me, and it was fine.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So.
I did the slide every once in a while, but didn't do much except for, usually get me caught underneath an enemy that would kill me.
Yeah, so you mentioned the power-ups a moment ago. There are power-ups in this game. There's there's power... there's power-ups to refill your daggers and grenades, because we should have mentioned those have limited uses. So,
yes.
There's a health refill. There's also the very rare health up, which will increase your... increase your life gauge.
Yeah.
So also give you a maximum. So you can have a maximum of 5 bars of health, which is okay. I really dislike games that do this because just to give us the 5 health bars to begin with. But
right.
So there's also 1-up and special. The special you can find to give you an extra special. But like Joe mentioned, some power-ups are fixed, some power-ups are random. So it's I just want... In many ways, this game reminds me of a lot of other games. It reminds me of Shinobi how it plays, particularly Shinobi 3.
Right.
It reminds me a bit of Strider. Do you remember that game? So, how your guy operates and the skills and whatnot. It reminds me also of Ninja Gaiden as far as the platforming goes, the power-ups.
Yeah.
But in Ninja Gaiden, the power-ups are fixed. You knew what was coming. So
right.
It's I don't mind the idea of random power-ups in a couple cases, but not throughout most of the game. It's because you want to have reliable power-ups so you know what to expect. Because for example, that a refill's coming up, you're more inclined to use your weapon before that.
Right.
Or something like that. But yeah, frustrating. So except for that fact where I thought the enemies were kind of out of your range in some cases. The tough but fair does kind of seem to be accurate, in this game.
Yeah.
So the graphics and music, we'll just cover this both at the same time. I mean, they're decent, but they're not great. It's
it's serviceable. Mediocre would be kind of the word I would use.
Yeah.
I thought the graphics were all right for what they were. I like the bigger sprites. Some of the boss fights had some incredible large sprites.
Sure.
But I mean, other than that, it's a cyberpunk kind of world, so it's a lot of grays and blacks, and it's just browns, muddy. But
yeah.
And, and like I said, the songs, the soundtrack and sound effects in general were okay, but it's nothing. There's other NES titles that have done it better. There we go.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. It's like, the graphics are fine, but they look more like an early Super NES game than like a mid-tier Super NES game.
Yeah.
I mean, you yourself look fine. Higane looks great. So,
right.
And like you mentioned, some of the bosses do have some like very nice detail. So, but the graphics are fine. They're not like like cutting edge, unfortunately. So, so there's a pretty good mix of enemies. I thought some interesting character designs. So, I will give it that. But
I mean, they get repetitive and reused a lot, though.
Sure.
That's one of my biggest gripes. I was just like, yeah, it's cool, but like, you play through the first level, you almost get the entire game. You know what I mean?
Right. So, yeah. So it's like the Japanese writing at the top is cool, and it's cool in the sense that it gives you a very like Japanese feel, but I wish it would have been translated for English, like the North American release, just for like you just for like ease of use. So,
yeah.
But so like the controls we mentioned before, there's a lot to handle on the controller, but everything feels fine once you get the hang of it. So. I really didn't. I really didn't notice any major problems like of that. So, what else can we say about the gameplay? It's a challenging game. The way we like the challenging game like I mentioned before. The game has limited replay value because I guess that sense it's good. It's good that it's difficult. So
yeah.
But a good player, i.e. a master player, who can go through this game, it's not a particularly long game if you're skilled enough to know what the heck you're doing. So the long plays on YouTube average around for this game average around 35 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So, pretty typical platformer length, I think, as far as that goes. But like I said, you got to be a very good player to be able to be able to get the game done like that time period.
Yeah, in my notes I put, despite its flaws, this title delivers a fun and satisfying experience, but be warned, it's not very long. It has very little replay value.
Yeah, I think you enjoyed the game a bit more than I did, because it's like, so I'm going to mention this point later on when we talk about the coverage. The coverage this game got when it got back in. But, somebody mentioned like one of the reviews that they love the idea and concept of the game. They just they just wish it was done by a more seasoned, experienced developer.
Yeah,
that's a great way of putting it, because it's like there's a lot here. It's kind of like Jurassic Park. There's a lot here they tried, and the ideas are solid, but the execution of everything just doesn't quite work. But I would have said, the difficulty's fine. It's like, give us more checkpoints, give us more hit points, give us either passwords like our battery feature.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give me a password or something.
Right. So I mean, like, make the game a bit more fair to the player.
Right.
But like make the power ups consistent rather than being random. So with some tweaks, I think it's a bit like a great game. But as it is, we'll get into this here in a moment. As it is, this game has gotten a lot of coverage over the years, as being like a sleeper hit, or really like obscure good game of the system or whatnot.
Right.
So, because of that. So I mean, if you enjoy games like this, it's certainly very unique. I can't think of any other game like this I played before. So
right.
So if you enjoy Japanese anime, ninja / samurai cyberpunk stuff with a platforming beat, definitely worth playing this game, I think. So, and if you enjoy tough games, then definitely for sure that it is. So, the game has one thing going in favor for replay value if you're if you're like hardcore enough, because if you beat the game, you unlock hard mode. So you can play through the game again at even a hard difficulty level. So
you mean it's not already on hard mode?
No. But there is, however, a code in the game to give you infinite continues to make to make your life a bit easier. So
that would have been nice to know.
So if you go to the configuration screen, highlight the music option, you have to play 9, 8, 7, and 6 in that order, and then you unlock the infinite continues. So, cool. I mean, like, should have been here to be, should have been default to begin with, gay people, but
right.
Hey, it's fine for what it is.
Right.
So, but so we mentioned before, despite the fact this game appears to be a Blockbuster only exclusive, it did get a lot of coverage. Like when it came out, a lot of magazines covered it. So, which I said is not uncommon for a game to be not covered for a Blockbuster game to be covered that way. The other Blockbuster games did get other Blockbuster games did get coverage in the magazine, so I really don't know. But I was surprised to see how much coverage the game got back then. So, so let's see. The reviews are actually pretty good for this game across the board. GameFan gave it 86 out of 100. GamePro on a scale of 1 to 5 gave it a 4 for graphics, 3.5 for sound, 4 for control, and 4 for fun factor. That pretty much averages out to being like a 4 or like a high 3. So, Next Generation gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Joypad gave it 86%. European Nintendo magazine gave it 91 out of 100. Your Game Informer gave 7.5 out of 10. Like, you get the idea. So, pretty good marks across the board. So, Nintendo Power, for example, praise the difficulty, the non-stop action, which is true. Action coming through Fast and Furious like all game long.
Right.
We didn't mention that, but there's never a dull moment. You're always being attacked. So, and the controls and the controls themselves, they praise for being like very tight, which I'll agree with. So, however, they criticized the game's graphics, the game's lack of variation, which I'll agree with. They actually use the phrase "a good NES game." So it's like you mentioned that before, Joe. So I found that.
Yeah.
I thought that was like funny. It's like, yeah, I can see that, but so let that review be like a message to anybody out there who thinks Nintendo Power only hyped up Super NES games. They didn't. They did get some like bad marks to games every now and then. So, GamePro called the music techno-Japanese rock at its worst. So they were pretty harsh on that. Let's see what else here they recommended the game. They recommended the game that was looking for a nostalgic action game experience, but only a rental quality. Which is like, okay, that's a little harsh, but I can see that.
Yeah.
Let's see. But so in a more modern retrospective review, somebody from Hardcore Gaming 101 did call it a cult classic and a sleeper hit, despite the problems that the game had. Pretty much said that there's some challenging although difficult platforming sequences. Enjoy the wide variety of gameplay mechanics. Criticize the game design for not using them correctly. Yes, that's true.
Right.
The set pieces, enemy sprites were praised. Environments too dark and boring. Hate the music. And he's the one who mentioned before that this game would have been very interesting in the hands of a more skilled developer. Which I'm like, yes, I agree with totally. So if the rough spots could have been polished out. This really like an amazing game. So it's like this is a case of like a rare game, probably getting more coverage than it deserves because it is a rare game. So it's like we can't answer we can't answer the question: is this game a sleeper hit? We can only give our opinions on that. A sleeper hit, I would say no. A sleeper game, yes, because like I said, if you enjoy games of this type, this game is worth playing. It is very unique, I'll give it that much. So, And it's a shame this game was, it's a shame this game is so rare and hard to find. But because again, I think if the game, however, had gotten a mass release, would it have the love it has today? I don't know.
Right.
I don't think so. There's always been kind of there's always been a factor of rare games and gem status going hand in hand over the years for various platforms.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's a hard question to answer. For me personally, I'd say no, but I would not knock anybody for saying that that they think this game is like a hidden gem.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far to say it's a hidden gem for the SNES console. This game reminded me very much of a Genesis game I had at about the same time. I actually had to Google and double fact check before I said anything. But in 1993, the Sega Genesis had a game called Mazen Saga Mutant Fighter, which was a side-scrolling beating up kind of same thing, like samurai cyberpunk elements. So, beat them up and whatnot, but the boss fights were done in like a one-on-one fighting style, almost like Mortal Kombat. That game is an underrated hidden gem, even to this day. This game, unfortunately, I can't put that hidden gem status on it. Is it a good game? It's serviceable, but there's probably about 4 other titles I could recommend other than this one to play. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, like I said, you have to be a certain kind of gamer to enjoy this. I think, if you love action platformer games, if you love difficulty games, if you love Japanese anime / cyberpunk stuff, there's enough here in this game to keep you entertained for a while. I think, but if you're just a regular player, okay, this is a rare game, let's check it out. You're gonna be like, no,
Yeah,
because this is definitely rage-inducing controller throwing after a few minutes.
Yeah.
So for sure. So
yeah, I mean, I would recommend this to anybody who loves old school ninja games, Shinobi, Ninja Gaiden, that sort of thing. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this here in a second, but as far as what this cart goes for, you would have to be a super diehard collector to even want this game.
Yeah. The price this game's going for, even collectors are going to have a hard time getting it. So
right.
But which we'll get, talking to, which we'll cover here in just a moment. But so unfortunately, this game is pretty hard to rare. Unfortunately, this game is pretty hard to find. What I found curious about this is I was doing some research on this. Apparently this game was approved for the Virtual Console for the Wii because it got an because the game is given an ESRB rating. So
okay,
and they only do that for games that go on the Virtual Console. So
right.
At some point, they were considering the game for the Virtual Console, maybe in Japan only, because there are certain games that only made on the Japanese side of things. But as far as I can tell, the game never got a virtual release. So unfortunately,
yeah.
By the way, if you're looking for this game outside the U.S., the Final Conflict, the subtitle was used, was only used for Japan. Was only used for North America and Europe. The game is something known as Higane in Japan. So, which apparently translates to steel.
Yes.
I found out by doing the research on this. So, steel is in stealing something, like STEL. Just to be clear about that.
Yeah.
But anyway. So we get into the fun part, prices. You want this, boy? Be prepared to open up your wallet and make it cry because it's gonna hurt. It has been a long time since I saw a game this expensive on Super NES. This is probably there's a reason this game is consistently listed as being on the 5 most expensive games on the platform. So, now, like we mentioned before, the North American version of this game is most expensive. If you want the European or Japanese releases, it's a little bit cheaper. Not by much, but it is a little bit cheaper if you want those formats. There's the North American version that's the most expensive. And like any other kind of rare game, there are repros of this game available. Available also. Like we just want the cart to play at a reasonable price. So, Jill, this is the first time. So this is the first time that you've been on the podcast. Like we've covered a repro game. It's common for like rare games like this to have repros available out there for people who want to play them. Obviously, people have very strong feelings. About this, like either way. What's your take? So, what's your take and what's your feelings about the whole reproduction scene?
I actually own quite a few parts myself. I have no problem with it.
Obviously, then, but
the way I see it, man, if you can afford the real hardware, the real cartridges, then I say you go for it. Absolutely go for it. But games like this, like Earthbound, I'm not going to spend $150, $200 on. Chrono Trigger is a fantastic game, but I will not spend $100 to $200 on that game either. To find a repro cart for 20, maybe $30 at the most, it makes more sense. It's the same game. Yes, it's on a different chipset than what it normally would be, but it's gonna play on the original hardware, just like the original game. I understand collectability, and some people are shady and try to push repros off as the real thing, and then try to make money off of them.
Right.
And that's a totally different subject. As far as being able to play the game, I am completely 100% okay with repros.
Right.
As far as resellers that try to push them as the real thing, that's a totally different thing that we could dedicate a whole podcast to.
Which I will say, like I will say, that seems to be rare these days.
Right.
I'm suing. I am seeing people do a better job of advertising that the advertising the game is real or not.
Yep.
Especially for rare games like this, people who have real copies will often open it up and take a picture.
Take
a picture of the board as well to prove it's real. And for example, for this game, many people, several sellers who offered the game did not say in the title it was a repro, because that's probably going to get you like dinged by eBay. But they'll say,
right.
But they'll say like see item description, because and then they'll say that if you read it, they'll clearly say like in the description, this is a reproduction. So I'm okay with that, because I'm like you should be reading everything in auction anyway.
Right.
You missed that, shame on you. So it's like a semi-related story about like reading things on eBay. One of my friends, as a gag gift, posted his PS5 box for sale on eBay. And now, scummy, like I said, scummy people do this all the time.
Right.
Where they put the box up and they give the impression that's real, that's a complete system.
Right.
He clearly said that the gag listing. It's hilarious. It's like he clearly says in the listing, not the listing title, but the description, that it's just the box.
Right.
So
right.
it's like do you want to tease your kids for Christmas? Do you want to brag to your friends you have the PS5, you're really too broke to have a pot to piss in?
Right.
Blah blah, that kind of stuff. It's like it's very funny. And he expected people to so he expected to sell for $10, $20 to the top, right? Auction closed $110.
Wow.
So either somebody really, really wants the box, or they didn't read the description, which is shame on you, because because in this case they very clearly said what it was.
Yeah, and even then at $110, you can't be believing that you're getting a PS5 for $110.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's okay, so that's more on you, on this case. But anyway.
But if you want to look at it from the scummy side, I mean, now they have a box that they paid $110 for. They could fill the thing up with rocks. They could put up the deceiving, description and title and sell it as a quote-unquote PS5 and make, unfortunately, a couple grand off of it, So.
But anyway,
it is what it is. People are going to do what they're going to do. I mean, it was literally hours after the PS5 and Xbox Series X launched that I saw Facebook listings for $1,500 and all this other stuff. So,
Which is common. I mean, like, people have been scalping systems like since they first started coming out. In the 80s.
Right,
so,
right.
I mean, that's nothing new there on that front. But
Yeah,
anyway.
it's just usually there's some breathing room, but there wasn't this time around at all.
No, right, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, and also the fact, and also it hurts the generation that both the Xboxes and the PS5s are available in small amounts.
Right,
So,
right.
I mean, like, we're not seeing like a massive release of systems like it usually happens around like launch time.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's hurting things either. So that's hurting things too. But anyway,
Yeah.
so even though it's a rare game, there are copies of this game to be found online. If like you want one, that's not a problem. I found like 17 copies total being listed on eBay. With 23 copies of the game sold recently, and even though a lot of these are repros, there's still enough real copies out there that you can grab one if you want one. So, the problem is the price, like I mentioned before. So, the repros, as you would expect, are much more affordable. They're more like common price releases. So, anyway, the carts themselves, and these are priced all include shipping. Repros sold anywhere from like $21 to $68. The big price difference is because that some people have actually gone to the extra length of also making a reproduction box and manual to go along with it. So the higher prices here, the $68, are more toward like a complete CIB repro kit, which is pretty nice, I think. But,
Yeah, that's nice.
that's not a bad price. Now, the real things. Let's play a little game, Joe. Do you want to guess of like average ballpark figure for like loose card only real card opening
right.
copies of this game, like how much they go for?
I'm gonna say real loose card only. Ballpark between $400 to $450.
You're actually pretty good there for the beginning of it. There's
Yeah.
a wide range of price for this, probably because that some of the lower end copies have like label damage and whatnot. So, but yeah. Anyway, there was a wide range of how much the carts themselves sold for, anywhere from $415 all the way up to $857. Yeah. So, and CIB is even worse. You want to make a stab? You want to take a stab at CIB prices?
Originally, I was thinking like CIB, like 8, 9, maybe $1,000, but I'm gonna go as far as say like it's got to be $2,000 and up, if not more.
It's not quite that bad, but it is pretty bad. CIB copies have sold anywhere from $1,200 to $1,400 recently.
That's two PS5s right there, or a PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Now, Price Charters does list sealed copies of this game having gone for $2,000, so that's where $2,000 I guess comes from. So there was no recent sealed copy on eBay, but I did see evidence that sealed copies were sold in the past.
Right.
The Price Charters does list in that price range. So yeah. So, but anyway. Yep, you can get a lot of money for $1,200. Yeah, you can get a lot of things for $1,200. So, yeah, this is like I said, this is one of the harder to get, most expensive games for the console. And unlike many other rare games, because it's never got a re-release or virtual release, the price is going to stay high for a while, I imagine. So I mean, eventually most rare games eventually get like re-released, like Wild Arms got re-released. Earthbound got re-released and got really re-released. Chrono Trigger got re-released. So, this is gonna stay pricey for a while.
Yep.
So if you want the game, either like emulated or just like share out the $50 or so like for the repro cards. So I mean, it's like reproductions. I think are necessary evil. Like I don't love the idea. I'd rather have original. But at the same time, I also am cool with the idea of just having it to play it. Like the example I always give is like, back when I had a Sega CD console for a few years, I really wanted to play Snatcher, but even back in the '90s, that game was already commanding a high price. Right. I eventually just bought a reproduction a burned, well, basically in that case, a burned copy of the game on CD off of eBay for cheap price to play the game finally. And then like when I sold the console and the games a couple years later, I just destroyed the CD. Because I'm like, okay, I bought it for one purpose. It serves its purpose. That's it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I mean, like, so it's for your own use. And, if you're not trying to be scummy about it, then I'm all for it. So.
Yep.
But yeah, and many of the reproductions, like I mentioned before, are very like good quality as far as that goes, with the quality they put in the quality that they put like in the games and whatnot. So like yay for that. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad we covered the game. It is very interesting to talk about at least. So it's always interesting. So it's always interesting to look at like rare games, because rare games have the reputation as rare games have the reputation as being like like not always very good games, but I think in some cases that's true, but not always. It's debatable. It's debatable. This is I don't think this is a bad game. It's like I don't think this. So I don't think it's fair to. So I don't think this game fairly fits into that rare game versus bad category.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, it was definitely interesting to play through and figure out like why the game was so why it's considered to be like a kind of a cult favorite with some people these days.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, I think that's about it. I don't think anything else to say about the game. Joe, how about you? Like any final thoughts?
I think we covered it.
Okay.
Emulate it. Maybe get a repro. Don't pay $100, $800.
Well, unless you're a collector, in which case.
Even then, that's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
I know, but there are folks out there who want the complete collection.
I know.
So that's I mean, like it's like, there are. If you have disposable income and you're doing the hobby anyway, so I guess like we'll see. But but anyway,
I hear you.
It's just like I said, it's too bad this game, a re-release of this game, some format would have gone a long way to draw the price down, like some other formerly rare games.
Yep.
So that's never gonna happen in this case. So I should never say never, but the odds are highly stacked against it. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
So, but anyway, next episode is a milestone. We have a tradition on this podcast of doing special things for every 50 episode. The 50th episode we covered accessories for the system. 100th episode was a special draft episode. So we're keeping that tradition alive with the 150th episode coming up next. I figured I'd do for Joe the same thing I did for George like a year or two ago. And give Joe the chance to cover games that we already covered in the podcast that he did not have a chance to talk about because he wasn't a co-host back then. So Joe's working on a list of some games he wants to talk about, and we're going to cover those games and revisit them in the next episode. So it should be fun. So I would not know the games beforehand, so you're gonna have so you're gonna be hearing my gut reactions to those games as we go over them. Some games I've talked about for a good 5-6 years.
Yeah.
So should be interesting. So anyway, that's what we're doing next time, and then we have some other stuff coming up to wrap up the year. There will be a break for Christmas as usual this year. Just a heads up on that. So unless Joe wants to put a special episode by himself, I won't stop if he wants to do that. But
we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So but anyway. Yeah, we were looking at it before, and unfortunately, we don't think there's any Christmas themed games left to cover because we've already covered them in the past episode. So yeah. I don't think anything we can do holiday related, unfortunately. But yeah. Anyway, so anyway, thank you again for listening to the podcast. As always, we very much appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, suggestions for games, whatever, you can feel free to leave us. You can feel free to join us on Facebook. and send some feedback that way, or you can also send me an email if you want to. That email is the SNESpodcast@yahoo.com. Joe, how can they reach you if they're so inclined?
Twitter's the best bet at Joe Sucks 30.
Where did you get that name from anyway?
So in high school, playing Gran Turismo, I was not very good. This is the very abbreviated version.
Yes.
So in the end, basically, it didn't pan out too well for me. I put the controller down, and one of my friends put in Joe Sucks. You know, after you do something for 20 years, it's basically part of you.
Yeah, I hear you. Anyway, so yeah. So anyway, thank you again for listening, everybody. Always fun to cover one of the more like hidden games. So I won't go. So I won't go so far as to call it a hidden gem. But that's just my personal opinion. But hidden game for sure on the system.
Yeah.
So, we'll cover some more rare games coming up in the future. So as always, thanks again for listening, and take care, everybody.
Good night.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now you're playing with power. Super power.